All right. Let's get fired up here.
Maximum freedom. Read.
Stay on target.
Maximum.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom. Read Rothbard.
Hello and welcome to the Actual Anarchy podcast where we talk about movies from a Rothbardian, Anarcho-Capitalist perspective. And we are back with an old friend of ours from up north. We will introduce him on the last night's portion of the show, but this is one of his favorite movies, and I say favorite with a U. We're going to be talking about The Warriors tonight on this 144th episode of the show. You can find the show notes more at actualanarchy.com/144. But before we get to that, let's say hello to Robert, who is furiously packing and trying to sell things so that he can make his move to the Netherlands, another region of central Washington state, right? Something like that. Moving out to the hills there, my friend.
Yeah, the Great Barren East. I don't know what you even call it. The Great Plateau, the Spokane Plain, the Wenatchee Divide. I don't know. There's some kind of geological term for that place, but it's the Okanagan Highlands.
And the impetus is entrepreneurial in nature, right? So you are voting with your feet to go and chase a dream, so to speak. You're running down a dream there, Tom Petty.
Yeah, I'm chasing the dragon. There's, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't fool me again. There is an opportunity over there, eastward ho, to get in on a startup for a Thai food operation that is, it's got a really solid, strong start, and they're just looking to expand aggressively. So that's what I'm going to be there for.
So you're going to be expanding your turf, which is very appropriate for tonight's episode, where we're going to be talking about the Warriors.
Yeah, might have to do some borking, blanking. What was that?
Bopping. It's bopping, my friend.
Bopping. I might got to do some bopping.
All right. So how can we tell our audience to bop us in a way that supports what we do here, Robert? And then we'll get into Last Nighters.
Well, you can leave a review for us on the iTunes. You can tell a friend. You can help us out on Patreon. You can leave a comment. You could subscribe to us on the YouTubes. You could subscribe to us on the Stitchers or your favorite MP3-enabled device that also listens to podcasts and broadcasts things yourself.
Yeah, all those
all those ways and more. You can get it to us on the Facebooks. Right, Daniel? There's Facebooks still?
That's right. And I actually just started a new super secret group that's for our live stream level Patreon supporters and also past guests and my wife, called the Actual Anarchy Golden Circle live stream access group, where they are now watching this as we speak, and we are interacting with people. We've had over an hour of pre-show content, most of it garbage actually, but I think some of it good. And so, if you want more of that, let us know. Give us some more money. That help Dre buy a Ferrari Testarossa fund. We totally appreciate that. Keep the lights on and all the rest.
You could sell ice to Eskimo, sir. You are just magic to my ears.
I am working on the salesmanship. By the way, let's get into that Last Night's Sports Show. I'm dying to get our guest on the line with us here. So, without further ado,
okay.
Can you count, suckers? Hey everyone, it's Daniel Evelyn and Robert Johnson, the Last Nighters, and the Last Nighters are part of the Launchpad Media, where they're always launching new ideas in your direction. Check it out at thelaunchpadmedia.com. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Warriors, and our friend Mike C is going to come out to play on this episode, which will be episode 87 of the show. You can find the show notes more at lastnighter.com/87. And before we get to that, Robert and I are your guests or hosts. We're your hosts. We have a guest. Mike C has been with us many, many times in the past. He's a good friend from the Great White North. He spells favorite with you, and this is one of his favorite movies. So, Mike C, welcome to the show. It's been a long time, but you are a popular guest for us. Your shows, your appearances get a lot of views, listens, traction, and action. So, welcome back.
Great. Glad to hear that.
So one of the things,
Thanks for having me.
one of the things
Thanks for being here.
about this movie is you have created what I consider a musical masterpiece, and it's like a concept album that utilizes the Warriors audio clips and some of the soundtrack for a good portion of the album, the concept album.
Yeah, about half.
Yeah, roughly half of it. And so I think that ties in really well with part of our discussion tonight about this movie, because as we said, it is one of your favorites. And so I kind of want to interweave that with your music. And then we'll, of course, have a link to the album and your other work on the show notes page at lastnight.com/87.
Thank you. That's very nice of you to say about the masterpiece part. Yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of traction, I guess, out there. I get some views. I got about my entire spectrum of work, I think, on SoundCloud, and SoundCloud is about 1,200 views over 4 years. So it's not a crazy amount, right?
All right. Well, take this.
I try to get that particular one out there.
Well, take the compliments with a grain of salt and consider the source.
No. What I was saying is that I really appreciate that, because I think it's very good. And it's nice to get some sort of external validation on what I've done. So,
all right. Well, you're welcome. And I say it in the non-Michael Mouse sense.
Okay.
All right. So we start off with the Google description usually. So Robert and Mike, if you guys are ready, we can get into this movie.
I'll give you my thoughts.
All right. We want those thoughts, Robert. This is going to be a contentious turf battle, I think.
Oh, weird. Robert doesn't like a movie.
I know, right?
I have my reasons.
How cliche.
Yeah, you don't like movies. That's the reason. It's just a blanket problem. Anyway, let's hear it.
The host of a movie podcast. You don't like movies. Perfect. All right.
Good. You got a Siskel Liebert thing going on.
We do. Oh, yeah. Sneak preview teaser style. Next year, the voluntarist comic book is going to have us in the centerfold position yet again with beautiful artwork that's going to be its own masterpiece concept that I'm really looking forward to. And we will share that actually with our Patreon bonus people when we have some drafts and some concepts ready to share. But before we divert too much further, here we go. The Warriors on the Google. The Warriors, 1979. It's a mystery/crime movie, according to the Google. 1 hour and 34 minutes. 7.6 on the IMDb, 89% Rotten Tomatoes, 65% Metacritic. However, 95% of the people like it. And here is the description. A turf battle between New York City street gangs that rages from Coney Island to the Bronx. The Warriors are mistakenly fingered for the killing of a gang leader. Soon, they have every gang in the city out to get revenge, and they must make their way across the city to their own turf. Came out February 9, 1979. The director is Walter Hill, and it has some very unique and interesting music that you sampled heavily for your album. The budget was $360,000, so fairly cheap. But I think it did fairly well in the, not necessarily in the box office, but in the, what do we call it, cult classic kind of venue. You know, like it's a popular film. It has a draw to it. But I believe it was actually pulled from theaters a little bit early because there was gang violence related to the viewings. So, Robert, I'm going to go to you initially for your take on what the Google description and any comments you have to open up, and then we'll go to Mike.
Well, yeah, just speaking to the popularity of the franchise, even Rockstar, makers of the Grand Theft Auto series, made a game about this. Supposedly, it's pretty good. I mean, I'd imagine it's like a 3D beat 'em up, but you know they can make a decent game. So, the main issue I have with the description is also one of the main reasons I had a problem with this film is that they call it a mystery. What was a mystery in this movie? Everything was 100% straightforward. There was no mystery at all. There were no question marks. Even the only question mark I had that was even slightly interesting was, why did that guy kill that guy in the beginning? Why did the guy, leader of the Rogues, kill Cyrus?
Yeah.
Why? And
he just likes doing stuff like that. No reason.
And that's the reveal at the very end.
That's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is the tale of this epic forced march that these guys have to go through.
But it's not a mystery, is it?
No, there's no mystery about it. I mean, generally, you don't want to give the game away completely in a description. Maybe why they shied away from describing it accurately. Well, I mean, that's a fairly accurate description.
I'll interject that the categorization and oftentimes the Google description itself is usually fairly off base. So I wouldn't put a whole bunch of stock into that because it's some algorithm or some like lowly paid intern in the Philippines writing this stuff.
Yeah, and surely a Google description isn't an indictment of any film.
No. It's not an indictment of the film, but I was asked to comment on the Google description.
Mm.
That's what Daniel asked me, and I did that. So get off my back.
All right.
All right.
He's flying the literals colors tonight, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, no, if I was going to be one of these guys, I would have been on the Baseball Furies, even though they looked the coolest, but they fought like little bitches. They were a bunch of...
Oh, they did all right.
They got their asses
They took
beat.
out Cowboy.
All of them together took out one guy when they had baseball bats and the Warriors had nothing.
Okay, so does that mean they're wimps or the Warriors are great?
With the way that they showed, with the choreography and the fight scenes in this movie.
Double axe handle?
Oh, a lot of double axe handles.
Some Star Trek shit, eh?
A lot of, some serious Star Trek Kirby lizard man monster type.
Well, this was made 40 years before John Wick, so...
Wen Wu Ping was not a thing, or if he was in Hong Kong. He wasn't over here.
You know, it's even with Fox going into the train. Somebody commented on that it's kind of cut, sloppily, or not sloppily, but the thing is, all you need to do is convey the story visually, So they fight. I mean, the choreography is not terrible. There's some pretty decent action in that, considering that it had $1 million budget by today's standards, and it was made in 1979. I think it's...
Yeah, and I'll add that
impressive action.
The editing was actually done in a very expedited manner. They had 3 different studio rooms working on editing this because they were in a race with a similar film called The Wanderers that came out in July, and they were trying to come out, release this film with enough gap ahead of time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I hate The Wanderers.
I will say that for
talk about it sometime.
This movie does look pretty good, and I especially enjoyed the little vignettes where they would cut away to like the the sunglass wearing boss guy and the radio speaker lady. I thought that those scenes were well lit and really kind of cool when they cut away to that stuff. Kind of artistically done.
For 92 minutes of film, I think they create a very rich world. They do a lot of very efficient world building. The plot moves very efficiently. It's almost, I would put it into the sci-fi category in a way. It feels almost apocalyptic.
Yeah, I could see that. It felt like a New York that did not exist. It was like an alternate world.
Well, so I guess the book and then the original script was, Puerto Ricans and black gangs and more of a racial thing. And the studio was like, you can't do that. But we wouldn't have, without the limitations from the studio, we wouldn't have had the costume and character design that we ended up getting.
The mimes versus the Baseball Furies and the
I think that's incredible.
Clowns
honestly,
or whatever those guys.
People
were.
that don't like that, I don't understand. I don't understand how you could not enjoy that. It doesn't even make any sense to me.
Oh no, I loved it. I loved it. How ridiculous it was. The idea that you're a tough street gang and you're gonna put on like mime makeup and you're gonna all dress the same and be like, "We're tough guys. You can't beat us up."
Well, it's like
fantastic.
I did a bit of like musical theater and stuff when I was younger, and a bit faggier. And it's like you see them moving, and I'm like, those guys are all off of Broadway. You can just tell, and then once you see it, you can't really unsee it. The way they move their bodies and jump over things, they're
ballet dancing
at all times. So yeah, there's like, considering that it's supposed to be sort of hyper masculine, it is kind of funny. But there's nothing inherently like effeminate in like having control over your body, as a man anyway, right? So I wouldn't even say that's
right. But they're playing like street toughs, and they're clearly like West Side Story dancer guys.
Yeah.
I'm not against it. I just
but they were in shape,
and I did. Fun world.
Yeah.
I actually think that was.
So it's kind of hard to unsee when they jump over the a couple of the subway
turnstiles
rails and stuff. When they kick their legs out and things like that. But again, I don't know if that's like. I've been told that's not masculine, but it isn't. I don't think effeminate necessarily. I don't think it demeans the man to be able to like jump over things and keep his footing.
I think it's intentional, and it's because I was reading a little bit of the background on this, and the novel came out, or the book came out in response to the West Side Story. He was like, well, I want to have something that's more like gritty and real. And so it makes sense to me that the movie would adopt some of the same mannerisms, the same like kind of, and you've got actors and you can kind of tell that they're Broadway stage types, but then it's this grittier, but almost more comical or comic book style, where
Yeah.
it's almost surreal, right? Like you were saying, sci-fi. And I think there's a director's cut of this that came out about 14, 15
did
years
you
ago.
did you get the theatrical release to watch?
Yeah, I got theatrical. I
like that one a little bit better. Yeah, the director's cut adds some comic book shots and kind of uses that as part of a smooth out some of the rougher editorial, like the rougher pieces of editing. But honestly, I think it wasn't needed.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'd be actually interested in watching it because I got the vibe from this, especially with the costumes and the ridiculousness of them, that this wasn't like a realism type thing. It was more of a story, you know, like a play acting kind of a thing. And the baseball Furies, they were ridiculous looking. And I guess Marilyn Manson actually got one of his like makeup ideas from this movie.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, no, like the new one isn't like he makes a couple changes, but it's not like he puts Greedo shooting first or puts a Jabba out of the blue in there or anything. It ruins
the whole thing. Yeah,
like it's almost like it's like a lateral move. So you can I like the I don't know the small changes in the theatrical. Like I prefer that, but like nothing's really lost. And like you said, there's like a real adding comic book panels to it and then like phasing in and out of the comic book panel to create the scene from a still shot really works towards what you're talking about with the surreal sort of quality to it, or the comic book quality.
Right. And to Robert's point, the cinematography on this I think was really well done. Like it was very stylized and well lit, and I guess they shot most of it at night. And that initial scene where Cleon is like telling the warriors like, hey, we're going to go to this meeting in the Bronx and it's a truce and all these gangs are coming together. You're going to be a representative. That they originally shot a daytime version of that. And I guess that was in the 2005 director's cut, but cut it because 95% of the film is at night. And so they reshot that entire thing and interjected the scenes where Cleon is like talking to each individual and then they like vignette away for a moment and then come back. And that kind of sets the scene.
Are you talking about Cleon talking to the warriors?
Yeah, the very
here's the lineup. But they didn't do the proper crowd scene. That was all at night. They never shot that in the daytime, did they?
Right. What I'm talking about is when Cleon tells each individual warrior why they've been selected to be. Yeah,
I put that in the third part of that album.
Right. Yeah. And it's actually not even in the version of the movie that I watched.
No, I found like behind our the cutting room stuff.
Right. And did you know whose voice that was?
Who? Cleon?
No, Orson Welles. Where he was talking about like who are the warriors, and then he says, like the Music Man or whatever. Well, no, that's
okay.
That's the one. That's the guy that Robert likes with the sunglasses. The badass. They're like
the Rock
martial arts dudes, right?
The Griffs, the Gramercy Riffs.
Yes, the Riffs. Yeah.
Cleon. Not Cleon. Sorry. Cyrus.
No, Cyrus is underling guy.
Yeah, Cyrus.
Oh yeah, I don't think we know his name.
Right. Yeah, we don't know his name, but Cyrus was the king or the warlord of the Gramercy Riffs, the biggest and strongest gang of the gangs that weren't the police.
I was just going to interrupt you and say that. Thank God I waited.
Right. And actually,
yeah, no, that's so I thought you guys might enjoy that because like that's discussed ad nauseum kind of in the film, right? Because like the cops are looking for any gang and they have the manpower to attack any gang they see.
Right.
Right. And that was
one
of Cyrus's points in the beginning to come together.
Yeah.
That they'd actually be able to outnumber the cops.
But
yeah, and actually some of the early like movie posters had to be taken down because they pointed this out, that there were 20,000 police but 80,000 gang members.
Yeah.
And people were worried about that like being disseminated.
As they should be.
Because it's like that Larkin Rose video, the tiny dot, where it shows like how many people are the enforcers, the politicians and their enforcers compared to how many people there are as citizens or the
they're the 1%.
Right, exactly. And so but it's interesting in the movie because Cyrus has a point in that if they did band together, then they could overpower the police. The police were the biggest, baddest gang, and they had like basically a federal backstop, right? Like the National Guard could come in or whatever. But it was Cyrus's plan to have a truce amongst their own gangs, take over different areas, additional turf, not worry about their little micro turfs, not, the little segregated like secessionist style, which is actually my end state goal for an anarchist society, but
or a decentralized one, at least
as decentralized as possible, all the way down to the individual. But the thing that Cyrus said was, then we can start taxing.
Yeah, I knew
in
you guys
those
would get hung
areas.
up on that. So what we're discussing is the foundation of an empire, right?
Right, and this was actually a Greek story, right?
Yeah, but not
mythological-
the gang warfare part. Just, I mean, they were surrounded on all sides by enemy factions, but it's not like somebody was trying to unite them in force within all. Like each faction was trying to dominate, but there was no Cyrus figure like in that story. They were just like completely behind enemy lines and had to march back 1,000 miles.
Okay, right. So that was just their journey. That's the Greek
Yeah.
part. But this first
So
part
that's like
is
the theme.
the first part is them trying to set up their own territorial government and competing
Yes.
with the existing territorial government. And so it's like the police are just another gang.
Yes, and they have claimed the entirety of New York, and Cyrus is like, no, we should revolt against that system, that monopoly on violence, and create a new republic.
And institute our own monopoly of violence.
Well, I mean, yeah, but at least it's representative, right? You can't really argue with somebody wanting to band together with other people to overthrow whatever oppressive forces, deciding their destiny for them.
So long as they don't then become that oppressive force for others.
Well, they will eventually, but maybe not for a couple of
Wouldn't
generations.
necessarily, but yeah,
I
maybe.
mean, it took 1776 to 1861, was it? That's pretty close. It's like almost 100 years.
No,
2 generations.
no. They wrote the Constitution, which grants them the right to tax right away.
Yeah, but it's representative or something like that. So,
Well,
I mean, okay, we can do the purity spiral thing,
I
but
don't
like, how
care.
far can you get into conversation if you're like, I mean, we're not like there
Okay.
isn't a lot of room to move, right?
All right,
Because
all right,
you
Mike,
can
I'm going to
be
write myself a
individual.
piece of paper that grants me the right to tax you, and then
Mhm.
once every 4 years, I'll let you vote on whether we tax you 50% or 60%.
Okay, so authority is derived from violence, though. So
Absolutely.
you can be an
Well,
individual,
political authority is.
and that's totally awesome. But at some point, somebody's going to get together with 3 or 4 people and come demand your subservience. So you need to
That's when you take
band
them out.
together with, allow yourself to other. Yeah, I mean, ideally, there's firearms now, so they're getting better every day. So the individual can certainly exercise a great deal of sovereignty, but generally, your life is defined, your destiny is defined by what you ally yourself to, right? What kind of collective? The collective of the family unit, your community, your city, whatever. At some point, you need to be able to collectively defend, because there's probably somebody out there forming an empire of useful idiots, and
We got
they
one right
probably they don't necessarily
Right,
have the same ideals as you.
But what
the same-
incentive would they have of taking us over if we don't have a political structure to
Well,
co-opt?
historically, to take your shit.
But they
Like
always
Vikings-
take over the
Vikings just
political
Kill the
mechanism.
women and stuff, right?
Well, what is
They just-
what is the first thing when the United States invaded Afghanistan? They took over the political system, and then they installed like their own puppet.
Yeah, and then the corporations that are sort of backed by the American government go in and start taking all the resources. Like there's $1 trillion worth of rare earth metals in Afghanistan, and the military was ready to invade in
right.
28 days. So they were probably planning that for 10 years.
And if the people of Afghanistan didn't recognize Mosul as as Mosul, the capital of Afghanistan, I don't know,
Certainly, they can rebel.
then they could fight back.
Yes, but they have to do so
if they
collectively.
see
is
it
the
as
point.
legitimate, if they see that invasion as legitimate, then they're far more likely to be like, oh, okay.
Well, let's take it
Well,
back.
exactly.
Let's
That's
take it
fine.
back to the
But my
movie,
point
then.
is simply that if the gangs are banding together to get rid of the cops, and then they form their own more responsible or accountable government within that system, or they have rules that they actually sit down and agree to, that is a moral improvement than simply the mandate coming down from somebody from a system they didn't participate in. And violence
it's
is the
just
only
for them.
authority in that system. So the government is the monopoly on violence, and we want to decentralize that as much as possible. So if we can get that down to the individual and the family, awesome. But generally, like even, if you've got a bunch of sort of farms or individuals, they're going to have to collectively defend, because somebody's always able to manifest some urukai and, get an army together and march.
Yeah, but
And they just promise them like rape and pillaging as a reward half the time.
that never works out in the long run. I mean, we've been fighting in Afghanistan for how long? Vietnam
Well, I'm
War
not talking
was-
about invading Afghanistan. I'm talking about overthrowing the New York police within the confines of this movie.
And
right?
if
So,
and
like,
if
they're-
and if the, right, and if all the gang members constantly fought back against the police constantly, and it was actually an act of war.
At an individual level, you mean? Like if
If nobody recognized the the cops as a legitimate. If everybody saw the cops as a gang,
That's exactly what he was trying to do, though.
like they saw the
was unite them against the police. So he was just saying, don't fight each other. We'll maintain a status quo, and we'll decide on what the rules for our zones are going to be, and we're not going to invade each other's territory anymore, right? I mean, a lot of this movie is about like territorial rights and sort of guest rights, you know. So when they get to the orphans, it's like they're like, you know, we're just coming through, and by virtue of them showing a strong force and saying like, look, we don't want to fight, but we will fight you if you try to fight us. The orphans backed down. They didn't back down, but they sort of permitted them to march through, right? And then there's a bit of a falling out.
Yeah, and that was the Jordan Peterson, you know, like having the capacity to be violent, but restraining yourself. And that's
and so, like, I mean, I understand Robert's point, but like, it's very difficult to stop people from like So when Alexander showed up to say like whatever Afghanistan or India, there was a bunch of kings fighting amongst themselves, so he was able to conquer them. Now, that may not be morally correct, conquering them, but if they had not been fighting amongst each other, they would have been able to defend themselves against the Macedonians. But in order to have that collective defense, the larger the construct of a society, the stronger the narrative needs to be, and the bureaucracy. And it's very unfortunate. So,
right,
like
but it's the bureaucracy that provides the incentive for the invasion. Without the tax structure,
we all agree that invading other countries is wrong. I'm talking about defending yourself.
I'm not talking about right or wrong. I'm talking about an incentive. Like if you're going to go and invade someplace, but you know, not only is every single man, woman, and child going to fight you tooth and nail the entire time and never going to give you a dime, then
but you're talking about a paradigm, right? Like a way of thinking.
Right. But those people are already have that slave mentality. They're like, well, this guy's going to protect us, and so I'm going to give him 30% of what I make, and blah, blah, blah.
Well, I wouldn't call it a slave mentality. They certainly were inspired by him to band together, whereas they weren't able to do that before. So for whatever reason, his story was better than the ones that were telling themselves, which was to, you know, fight your next door neighbor. So like, yeah, no, it isn't much of an improvement, but it is better than trying to take the cops on by yourself.
So it's like this,
because if like
compared to what incremental situation is what
if that Mongol group, you know, what are they called? They look like Mongols. If they decided to declare war,
There's Mongols in the movie.
Yeah, in the opening sequence. Okay, the mimes, the mime one. If the mimes declared independence and refused to pay their taxes and refused to adhere to the laws that the New York City had decided for them, the police would be able to concentrate their entire force on the single rebellion.
Well, yeah,
so
you're just talking.
This is defeat in detail, right?
Right. You're talking about people who are quote unquote tax cheats today. You've just got like a few people here and there that don't pay.
It's a bit more than taxes, though. They're not like dumping tea in the river. They're enacting violence on their fellow citizens and or protecting themselves through violence, because it seems to be like a fairly unkempt or uncivilized landscape, right? Because like the reason you join a gang is to protect you from being hurt by other gangs, I think is the point.
Yeah,
that's why you join gangs, right? To belong to something that can protect them and possibly give them access to opportunities.
Right.
Well, yeah,
that may not be right, but
microcosm of a prison. Yeah, there's a huge
or society.
Same thing.
Right? Yeah.
But yeah, there's a huge incentive to collect up into some sort of a group that is promising protection, because there is defense in numbers.
Right? And there's also
so this is the thing, right? Is like, how do you overthrow an empire? Well, you need another empire. At least the narrative of an empire or the inspiration of an empire. Like you as libertarians, you have the non-aggression principle, right? Which is a great philosophy, and that transcends all the different sort of inner workings. One guy's a family man, another guy's a carpenter, fat, skinny, short, tall, right? 98% male as far as libertarian demographics go, but still, you have philosophies, which acts as a placeholder for, the state or religious narrative. So you both agree on something despite, right? You agree on your moral compass, and that requires people to talk to each other and form a collective story. So like there's this, I don't know, narrative is a way of expressing this sort of overwhelming individual experience in a way that can be interpreted by other people, right?
Certainly.
Yeah, so that's like the nature of art. So politics is art, and it's very unfortunate how quickly corrupt it gets. But
Well, that's the nature of it, though.
yeah, but it's like, okay, so if gang A, B, and C can all agree on the level of taxation that will go to the next tier up, that is an improvement on their position, whether it's objectively good or bad, than not being able to negotiate with your masters.
I would guess that if everybody's agreeing to some contract, but that it's an improvement. But if it's a contract that involves coercion and violence, then
Violence is the only authority that ultimately backs these things up. So you need to be able to defend yourself to be able to form goodwill between parties and free exchange and voluntary exchange, right? So we want to strive towards that, right? But then what do you do when somebody just disobeys that principle? You have to defend yourself. This is like why the Second Amendment's maybe more important than the first, right?
yeah.
Because like you need to be able to defend yourself.
Pretty much meaningless, yeah.
So
All right, so we basically sort of talked about the theoretical thing that Cyrus was trying to bring into fruition, right? He was trying to have this stand down truce between the gangs from fighting each other so they would be able to band together and outnumber the greater oppressor and potentially improve their situation incrementally. Though,
yeah,
to Robert's point, they're just going to basically impose their own government over the territory, but it might be a minor improvement, at least for themselves. And who knows what would happen with the people who are affected by, on the bottom rung. For instance, the orphans who weren't even invited to this meeting because they weren't even recognized as really a gang. So as far as representation goes, the orphans didn't have any. But back to your talking about, the different turfs and the warriors going through their turf and showing their colors and showing that they were willing to fight, but were going to hold back so that they could be respected and permitted to pass, but not so fast, because Mercy comes down and says to them, why are you guys being such pussies? Why are you going to let these guys walk all over you? And so it's this woman stirring up trouble. Now, what I don't understand with her character, and maybe it's fleshed out a little bit more in the comic, the director's cut with the comic book interludes, was her story? Because she's first there fucking shit up, causing a problem where there wasn't one. Like the problem was resolved, and then she basically kicks the hornet's nest. And then moments later, she's walking alone and then gets abducted by the warriors. And then later
what the fuck do you think she wants then?
Well, I don't know.
She wanted to be abducted. Like she wanted to get out of her neighborhood, which she discusses later. I think this is actually one of my favorite female characters, even if she isn't, I don't know. It's not like a very wonderful light that they present this character, but I think the actress pulls it off and the character has depth. I think that she's wants more. So she's looking for a strong male, which is ultimately what she seeks out and finds. So she basically just follows Swan home.
Yeah, I would say that she's by far the most interesting character in the entire film, just because she seems to have something actually going on.
Yeah, like, so she, I should have smacked you the moment you open your mouth. And she says, well, why didn't you? And why aren't you defending this territory? You know what I mean? Because like the consequences of not defending the territory is that the rape and pillaging, right?
So wait, so you guys call her an interesting character. I call her an incoherent character because what she does doesn't make any sense to me, but maybe you guys can make it make sense.
Have you interacted with women a lot? Pandora's box, Daniel. Come on. You never know what a woman's going to do or say.
Okay. Well, so I think her motivations were simply seeking out a better mate or an adequate mate, which didn't exist in her neighborhood because they were all weak.
All right,
so she wanted better chance for breeding, I guess, at a biological level, and then that manifests as
it's hypergamy. It makes sense. It's always happening.
So basically, your theory here is that
trading up.
She's hanging out with these betas, the orphans, and she's a prostitute.
She's not. She objected soundly to that.
She did object to it, but then
no, she doesn't sell herself. She gives herself to everyone, which is why Swan criticized her.
Okay. Well, in the on Amazon Prime, you can watch, or it's not on Prime, but I think it's on Stars or whatever. But you can see the X-ray stuff. So I actually read through that last night after I watched the movie, and it says that she's actually a prostitute. And I don't know if that's maybe fleshed out in the game that Robert was referencing earlier, the Rockstar game. But
well, I mean, I don't know if Prime's an authority.
But I guess
it's in the name.
What we're saying here is that she's unhappy with her group that she's hanging out with. So in order to test these interlopers who are going to try to walk through, she basically picks a fight with them to just see how tough they are. And once they demonstrate their toughness, then she wants to tag along with them, is what you're saying. Like she's found somebody
I
stronger.
would, if I was like somewhere between MGTOW and pickup artists, I think that this particular scene would be very good, like a learning scene for young men trying to understand why they're getting like their heads spun around every time they interact with a girl.
Okay. Now, the first person to interact with her is Ajax, right? Like when
he's Ajax, the original toxic male.
Yeah, he's a raper. He likes rape, which actually gets him.
He likes it rough.
Yeah, well, gets him in trouble a little bit later.
Yeah, he seemed to be a rapist. He seemed a bit rapey.
Yeah,
you keep those guys around though because they're tough, right?
And not too bright. Yeah, he was their muscle. But so he interacts with her and like is about to rape her, and then they decide not to.
Well, he's not about to rape her. He's just enjoying her struggling and him dominating her in a kind of a weird sexual way. Like he's enjoying like holding her. Yeah, like I'm sure that's the reason that they vote him out of being in control, right?
Which is not an interesting... rape. It's dominance and control in a sexual way.
Well, it's assault.
Which is pretty much the definition without the penetration, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So he wasn't like he didn't get to that stage of it, and I think that he gets like he's probably in a feedback loop at that point where that's kind of just what he's into
now,
to an extent. But
so
he looked so sad, right? When Swan's like, okay, let her go now, and he's like, what? Fuck you, buddy.
So
fine.
was her journey, because after that, then she's running around with Fox, and then Fox gets taken down by the cop and thrown in front of a train and dies. And they don't seem to really dwell on that. He's just gone all of a sudden.
Okay, you want to hear the paratext, the meta of this?
Yeah, explain this.
Okay, the director wasn't getting what he wanted out of the actor. Fox was supposed to be Mercy's love interest. They were supposed to get together. And then at some point, he just wasn't, the director wasn't liking what Fox was producing, so he fired him, and they wrote him out.
Oh, I see.
The guy that plays Fox didn't even show up to that scene. That's a stunt double.
Okay, all right, getting dropped by the cop in front of the train. Okay, because it's like they just left it. Like all of a sudden, Fox is he's out. That's it.
Yeah,
and then
I think it works though. It works really well because like it ups the stakes. People getting killed and arrested kind of ups the stakes. They don't just all get out. You know.
Okay.
Sort of, it enforces that the bad guy, the people opposing them are out for blood.
Now, who is the guy who he went to that apartment with all the women, the Lizzies? It was the black guy, the real young guy, and then another guy.
The Sirens?
Yeah, the Sirens. Yeah.
Cochise? The one with like sort of a pseudo-Indian headdress or a Native American Indian headdress?
Not that guy, but the third guy, the sort of John Belushi.
The Afro guy?
No, the John Belushi type guy.
Shit.
I forget his name. It's not the Afro guy, and it's not the Cochise. The third guy.
You mean Merman?
Is his name Merman?
Not Rembrandt.
Not Rembrandt. Rembrandt's
Vermin was Vermin's the third one. It's Cochise, Rembrandt, the art, and the Vermin.
Okay, yes, yeah, Vermin. So Vermin was actually, from what I read, he was less involved in the movie. His lines were less, and his script was less. But then he played up that scene with the women in the apartment and actually earned himself more screen time. That might be related to Fox being written out, right?
Yeah, I think like this is very no holds bars kind of filming, very guerrilla. Like, I mean, the $1 million isn't a lot of money. That's the inflation calculator. $1 million filming on the streets of New York, not necessarily going for permits. You know, they hired all no names. Nobody there had done anything really, right? And they were all working really hard towards the project that they wanted to put out, right? That's another reason I really like this movie, is because it represents a different time in filmmaking, where artists would get together and grind out something through a lot of hard work, and they were sometimes rewarded for that effort, you know, when they produced something of value. And so, you know, to your point, Buddy basically got promoted for his acting in the middle of the movie.
Right, and got some more scene time, more screen
Buddy,
time.
and another guy got fired, right? So there you go. That seems like a libertarian wet dream to me.
Right, because Vermin was actually supposed to die in that apartment with the women, with the Sirens.
Oh, I see. We're going to get jabbed here. We're going to get jabbed.
Yeah, I don't know if you could say that anymore.
Well, as much as you can say faggot 3 times in a movie right now, probably not.
Yeah, I know Robert and I, we both recently watched the Chappelle show, or the latest Chappelle episode, which has outraged the left wing lynch mob, and to me, it's it's in contrast to what we have on offer today. It's refreshing, but it doesn't hold a candle to anything Richard Pryor did or any
or Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy, right? Raw or Delirious. It's nothing like that. But because
Like, I mean, Bill Cosby had clean shit.
it was better, yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was cutting, and you know.
Right, but we're so starved for it now that, and I do love Dave Chappelle. I do. But
yeah, he's kind of sold out though, right? Like he's pretty tame.
Right. But
compared to Chappelle's show.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Compared to who he was before, I feel like they cloned him and.
Well, he's getting
they
older.
got a gun to somebody's head. You know what I mean? Like
he's been living the good life. He's wealthy now. I mean, you know.
I do like.
Yeah, maybe you get into the echo chamber, and then I mean, as you get older, you lose a little bit of that piss and vinegar. So
I do like that he called out the outrage people, which was really good.
Yeah.
But he mentioned that even during the Chappelle show, he had to go to the compliance office or whatever they're called for the word faggot. Like, I guess you couldn't say that on TV back in 2004, 2005. And
yes, you do. I mean, again, this is privatizing censorship, right? Self-policing broadcast, and they do it so that the government won't come in and do it. But it's also a way for these companies to, I don't know, this sort of weird like neoliberal capitalism where ideology becomes the product you're selling, right?
Wasn't this
so
similar
like
to what the
Coke is LBGT, and if you don't drink Coke, you hate gay people, kind of thing, right?
Oh, the virtue signaling, yeah. It seems similar to the MPAA and giving films ratings. Like Robert Wood did The Aviator a while back, and Howard Hughes was like, "Hey, if you compare the necklines or the cleavage on this movie, and this movie, then you have to give mine the same rating because it's actually technically less or whatever." Because they want.
Well, no, but we're talking about
rating.
bureaucracy, which is just a way to dominate smaller factions, right? It's just like. Regulation is just a way for like the bigger companies to dominate the smaller ones, right?
Correct.
I mean, it's like Disney's going to be able to sue you for intellectual property rights violation way more than you're going to be able to sue them. Absolutely. And it's by virtue of the government only just doing enough to have the laws in place, and then the courts, are just too expensive. So it's like I said, it's a way of privatizing all the oppressive functions of government. It's pretty smart. The system that we've cooked up. It looks like I bludgeoned you into silence. Should we talk about the movie, or
do we have to? I mean, it's okay.
No, it's actually a great film. Like
it's not a great.
It's a fantastic film. No, it's really great. What's interesting about it? What else did
this director go on to do?
He did 48 Hours, another 48 Hours. What else has he done? He's done a few things. He's not like it's not like a prestigious career, but it looks like he likes doing what he's doing. And a guy that's made 20 films, and they're not all a bunch of big hits and stuff. I think that's I got a soft spot for that more than the Spielbergs, to be honest.
That's fine. Okay.
So I wrote down here, so basically, Cyrus is trying to create an empire, right? And so I wrote down here, the consolidation of power comes at the vulnerability of hijacking the narrative, because in order to construct all these people together, it makes it vulnerable to being hijacked by like whatever media force is in place, right? So if you use what's his name? What's the rogues guy's name? The bad guy.
The bad guy? Crazy guy?
Luther. Sean Penn.
Luther, yeah. Luther
guy.
hijacks the narrative. And it's very easy because the people involved are starstruck. They're in a state of sort of hypnosis and from the magic that Cyrus has enacted on the group, right? Through this ritual of speaking, right? We talk about this all the time with like the Hitlerian types of, like always a great public speaker, right? It's like, well, yeah,
sure, you got the charisma, the appearance of competence. You got the ideas. Yeah.
And you don't have to be perfect, then you just have to sell it, right? And so because everything's heightened, all you have to do is say, hey, the Warriors did it, and everyone's like, okay, let's go beat the shit out of those guys and kill them because they're angry. It's like,
Yeah, it's
and this is the nature of politics. This is the nature of media. It's like 2 minutes to 8,
Certainly.
So it's like
it's a reflection of the world we live in. I would agree. That's why it's decently competent art.
No, yeah, I really like it, and it represents a older kind of filmmaking with a lot of negative space and slower movement and stuff. So
there's less story going on, a whole lot of running.
Yeah. Well, the action is the story, right? And like I said, it's efficient. It's 92 minutes long.
It felt longer to me, but I've been to New York a couple of times and ridden the subway a fair amount when I was there, and so I actually had a spatial awareness of where they were traveling through. And I think that helped in understanding what was going on. I think if you had never been there and never ridden on the subways, you would be a little bit lost in what's going on.
Well, they did it's a pretty good shot at the beginning to show you on the subway map the distance that they're covering, right? That's kind of part of the opening sequence.
Right. And they even
Kinda
mentioned
smart.
how it's kind of confusing.
Yeah, and they set up sort of one idea, one premise, but that's the false premise, right? You think that like, oh, okay, now I'm listening to Cyrus, and what's happening? Oh my God, he's shot. Okay, so that premise is completely thrown out, and now the warriors need to get back to Coney Island
Right.
and just run.
They're unarmed,
Okay,
and they don't know if there's still a truce or not.
Yeah, I think it's a great premise for a film. Works for me anyway.
I'll agree. And their first gang that they encounter is the skinhead types, which I thought.
Yeah, the multiracial skinheads.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because there's a bunch of black.
Well, they didn't want it to be racial, right? So they just made sure that the warriors were like kind of like a mosaic of culture, and then the skinheads were also like a homogenous version of that.
Right. Yeah, but some of the other gangs were like very clearly like a specific type of people, like a group, right?
Yeah, but because the costumes sell it as not being racial, so you can't say that like the Baseball Furies were all white guys, but they were. Well, it's was it Socrates or Aristotle? It talked about the essence of something, right? So like the essence of the Baseball Furies was not their race; it was their baseball uniforms.
Right.
That uniform made them, made them a collective, not their blue eyes or.
Right. Now, what did you guys think?
That makes sense.
Back to the keep going back to the orphans for whatever reason, but after Mercy basically instigated there to be a problem where there wasn't one, then the orphans demanded that the warriors take their colors off because she wanted a vest, and then the
So they're kowtowing. They're kowtowing to the members of their society that cannot defend themselves.
Right. So, but I like that the warriors were like, "Fuck you." You're like, "We're not doing that."
Oh, that's one of the best fucking lines I think in movie history, where he just waits a minute and then he just says, "Fuck you." It's so simple and it's like so defiant. Like, no, I'm not. This end the conversation. I tried being nice. Like, we're gonna do this either way. You know what I mean? So I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a strong line. I did enjoy.
Yeah, it's peace through strength, right? And the threat of violence.
Right. And the demand was almost like the demand. This is gonna be a weird tangent, but the World War II demand for Japan to surrender and give up their emperor and all of those things, like basically this unconditional surrender that was demanded, and it was going to be unacceptable to Japan. And it basically set up the premise that then, okay, now we can drop these bombs because they said no to this impossible to accept demand. And that's almost what the orphans did to the warriors, because they were like, well, we want you to remove your colors and then you can pass. But the warriors were like, no, fuck you. Like, that's not an acceptable thing. That besmirches our honor, and we're not going to do that.
Well, I think it wasn't acceptable because they had already reached terms, and then those terms were changed by some exterior force that, it's like if we kowtow to that.
She altered the deal.
She altered the deal, and when
she holds the guy's balls in her head.
Yeah, and so like when you renegotiate and you acquiesce, you kowtow to them, and then they just change it again. At what point?
Yeah, you show you're a bitch, and they're gonna treat you like one.
Yeah, exactly. So
right. Well, I think that the warriors would not have accepted those terms, even if those were the outright terms, like initially. I think it would have been unacceptable to them.
Yeah, but they allowed the orphans the privilege of a formal negotiation.
Personal point of privilege.
Yeah, they allowed them. They didn't humiliate them. They allowed them to be prideful in the negotiation, even though Team A is going to do what Team A needs to do. Team B can't do anything about it, but they're still going to formally acknowledge their property rights, even though they're walking through either way. So I think that's actually it's kind of one of my favorite scenes in the film. Right? It says a lot in a very, very short period of time.
Now, of course, the most iconic scene is when Luther, for whatever reason, ends up in Coney Island with his gang.
We tracked them down. They knew where they were from. And at that point, you need to silence the people that know what happened, right? Kind of thing. You don't want to leave the loose end, right? So they had to suicide them.
Yeah, it was a very interesting interplay, the entire thing, where Cyrus, who is basically this Joker-esque loose cannon who just wants to watch the world burn and just does something chaotic for the fun of doing something chaotic, then blames the warriors just on a lark. Like, on a
the one guy saw him.
Right, yeah.
Fox saw him, so that was probably what got them in trouble.
Right.
Was witnessing the crime, which can get you in trouble with bad people.
He may have information that may lead to the arrest of Luther.
Yes, but that's exactly it, right? So, I mean, like if they had been in that situation, they might have ended up dead in a jail cell, like by hanging themselves or something.
Right.
All individually.
Or rape with a plunger.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
So yes, they needed to tie up loose ends. That's why they tracked him down. It's that need sort of coalesced with the Luther's agenda of wreaking havoc.
right, and he was trying to close the loop on that, but someone had come to the Gramercy Rifts to spill the dirt on Luther, right? And that's why at the climactic scene, after Luther does the clink clink warriors come out and play, yay, which apparently was ad-libbed.
Yeah, they needed to fill in the gap there and egg him on a bit. They needed something that what's his name?
I forget.
Von something. I think he's got a German name.
Okay, yeah.
But from Luther, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
Luther.
and so he stepped up to the task.
So it does make sense that they do have this final confrontation, and then the Gramercy Rift show up, and they're like, well, we know who actually did it, and so we're going to kill him and his gang and let the warriors go. So it has a nice resolution at the end. And I want to float back on the rape thing for a moment, because we go back to
from Ajax, the obvious rapist.
Yeah, Ajax. So yeah, he displays this desire to rape several times, and then in the Central Park, he sees this woman at the bench, and apparently she's a cop, but you don't really know this until later. But when he first interacts with her, she's like totally with it. She's fine with it.
Yeah, it feels a bit like entrapment to me.
Well, you find some honeypot sitting alone in the middle of the night on a park bench, and she's like coming on to any guy that walks by. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So
seems a little suspicious to me, like a spider and a fly.
Well, okay. So I think that would have confused Ajax, since he's probably had a fair amount of sexual interactions with women that were him being fairly aggressive and getting probably positive results.
He's been punched in the head probably about.
Yeah, who knows? But my point is, there are some women that like aggressive men when everything has been signed and sealed and we're committing to doing something. Once a sort of safe arena has been established, some women enjoy it rough, right?
Once everybody's signed their consent forms. We know how.
Once everyone's signed their consent forms. I don't want to generalize, but this has been a trend in my experience. So that's just anecdotal. But my point is that Ajax probably assumed things about that situation and acted based on his experience. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that you probably shouldn't be in that position unless you want that outcome.
Well, the thing that got me,
without victim blaming, and it does feel a lot like entrapment, even though he's obviously like out of line.
Yes. Well, the thing that got me is that had he not gone over that line of being overly aggressive, then they
would have arrested him anyway.
Well, for what though? Because she was.
Well, she would have. Okay, so I think
being one of the warriors at one point when they're on the train, the cops just walk up and they're like, "Oh shit, we got to run."
I think that she was setting up a trap, so she probably would have egged somebody on to the point of being kind of out of control, and then just said no at some point. You know what I mean? That's just what I'm theorizing, because I'm not sure what the sting is otherwise.
Okay, yeah, because it seemed to me like she was consenting, and then he got overly aggressive.
Okay, so essentially, a cop was sitting on a bench attracting rapists with a vulnerable aesthetic, right?
Right, but then
like they were just,
but then agreeing to it.
Yeah, but then also also renegotiating, a couple times after he gets aggressive to ensure that they can. I mean, I'm not even sure why they don't just arrest them at that point, but I mean, it's a good way for him to go out, right? Because it writes his character out of the situation.
Right, yeah, because we do have this journey, and you're losing people along the way for various reasons, and the sirens like pull a few of them off track, like off their journey, which is another like Greek thing, right? Because this is sort of a retelling or a mashup of several stories going on.
They're definitely sirens, though, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's also like that horror movie thing, which it really got me when Swan like left those two guys to go back and check on Ajax, because I was like, you guys are disbanding and breaking apart when you're have more protection as a group.
Yeah. So this is actually, I made a couple notes about this, because there's like, when Ajax challenges Swan, there's an informal voting process, which is a natural hierarchy forms. And so everybody does their own internal calculations as to who should be in charge and who's dominant. And it's there's sort of two alphas, right? There's like a Leonardo and a Raphael. There's a guy that's maybe tougher than everybody else, but he's uncontrollable. And there's a guy that's almost at the highest level of toughness, that's also able to think critically and make decisions for everybody. And so they elect Swan without a formal voting process. So it's interesting that happens, and it happens a couple times throughout the film, right? Like, but the methodology of the warriors, whatever their code is a great deal of emphasis on individual choice, which I thought you guys would appreciate, to be honest. So they're like, Ajax, you shouldn't do this. This is retarded. And then he goes anyway. And then they're like, we kind of owe Ajax. We should go back for him. And Swan takes like 1 second to analyze the situation and says, okay, I'll go try to accomplish something else. Stick to the plan outside of that. I think that's very good leadership in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So they're very individually driven, and they decentralize and then come back together.
I like what you're saying, but I think in the situation,
You don't agree with the decision?
the circumstances don't warrant it, because they are now in acknowledged hostile territory.
Well, who's the fascist here, me or you?
I'm just saying that the circumstances they were presented with would have made
So these two
journey more
individuals want to do something on their own. Does Swan conscript them? Like, does he enact some sort of authority then to solve the problem and say, no, you are not allowed to do that?
No, I guess what I'm saying is that I can't imagine making the decision that they made.
Well, they had some sort of.
Given
He's
the
obviously
circumstances.
so. The reason you would keep somebody like Ajax around is because he's probably very good at fighting, which is like, you seem to be tougher than the rest.
Hmm.
You keep a guy like that around in case you need somebody to use a flamethrower, run up a beach.
Or the Molotov cocktail.
Yeah. Like the guy, he gets it done, right? So he's probably saved their ass more than once outside of this film, and then he saved Cowboy specifically, right? He saved my ass back there. So they just had a sense of loyalty to him and bailing him out of his own bad choices. So
Okay, well, I'll give you that.
I mean, we can't. The heart wants what the heart wants, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but
Yeah,
I mean, I'd go back for you guys.
you are back for us. Thank you.
Yeah,
for that.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had you on for a bunch of movies. Collateral, Super Troopers. No, Starship Troopers. I keep mixing the two.
Starship Troopers, the real Super Troopers.
That's right. What else? Do you remember what else you've been on for?
Christmas Carol with Bill Murray.
Yeah, Bill Murray. Yeah.
Bill Murray's Christmas Carol.
Whatever that one's called.
Night
Scrooge.
of Living Dead. I think that might have been. I might have just said the
Scrooge.
Night of Living Dead might have been the first one I said, because there's a lot of collectivism versus individualism in that one.
All right. Yeah. Well, we'll have the whole list on the show notes page, and we are actually getting a little bit long on this one, so we're gonna need to start moving into final summaries and reviews. We haven't even talked about your album very much, but there is a fair amount of that discussion in the pre-show, which is available for Patreon supporters at lastnighters.com/Patreon. So if you want to hear Mike talk about his music, specifically like some of the story behind it, hit us up on the Patreon and you'll get a piece of that. Well, we will have a link to his album on the show notes page as well at lastnighters.com/87. But Robert,
you could.
Oh, go ahead.
You're kind of breaking up on my end, so I keep interrupting you. But it's not. I'm not trying to interrupt you. It sounds like you're quiet for the 1.5 seconds.
Well,
no, I'm not trying to be rude.
See, that's the thing that Robert knows full well, that it takes me a moment to process. I'm using your Canadian terms here, so it's like very frustrating to talk to me because it takes a little while for me to get going.
Okay, fair enough. No, if you want to talk about my album ad nauseum, I'd happily do another 3-4 hours. So
okay, well, let's get.
Yeah,
into
no,
that.
please listen to my music. I'm really proud of it.
I called it a masterpiece. And
So
let's get into that in our what we call Kathleen Turner Overdrive, which is the additional bonus content after we finish doing the episode here. But Robert, let's go to you for final summary interview, unless you have any other tidbits that you want to talk about before we get into that.
No, I thought that this was a very straightforward film, and so I kind of just took notes of what happened in the movie. I didn't have a whole lot of interesting things to discuss, so I'm glad you guys really brought it tonight. You've obviously thought about this film a lot more than I did, and really got a lot of blood out of this stone, in my estimation. I didn't think that this thing was worthy of a whole lot of discussion, but here we are, having discussed it for over an hour now, and I got a little bit more of an appreciation for it, for sure. I think Mike has turned me around just a little bit. I still don't think this is a great film. It kind of lost interest in it, to be honest, especially towards the end. I was just kind of waiting for it to end because it never got, like, the narrative weight was never there for me. It's like, okay, these guys need to get home. Well, they're gang members. I mean, how... are they that much safer in Coney Island? I mean, I guess, but I don't know why some gang guys couldn't just show up to your front door and then kick the shit out of you there. I don't know, whatever. It works as a device, I suppose. but I kept wanting this to be more than it was. I guess I can appreciate Mike's appreciation for the simplicity and the directness in the film, but I wanted it to be, why did he really kill that guy? Was he, is there something else going on? And then, oh no, he just did it because he gets off on doing it. You can do it that way, and that's what that movie was, I guess. But I guess I wanted more, and I should have known that it was going to be that, because the whole movie was very simple, and that's all it was. So to have this, be some kind of underlying mystery, also, I don't know. Anyway, hey, now I am doing my final summary review. I interrupt other people, but other people aren't allowed to interrupt me. That's how it works in this situation. So anyway, I thought the acting was pretty atrocious. They did seem like stage actors that were not comfortable on camera. Maybe they're acting for the stage a little more than they were for the camera. So there's that. Some were better than others, but overall not great. I do appreciate what the artistry of the director. I thought he was pretty good, and what they did on that budget was impressive. So anyway, I think this is just a movie. Is it a decent movie? Sure. But to give it a number, I guess I'm just going to give it like a 5. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's bad. It's just an average thing. And it's incredible talking to Mike, who this is his favorite movie of all time. Of all the movies that have been made by all the greats, this is the one he picks. Okay. All right. Different strokes for different folks. But that's my review. Thanks, guys.
All right. So your review is basically, it's a movie. All right, Mike.
It's a movie. If you wonder,
better than I thought he was going to give it.
It's a movie.
I'll do mine, and then we'll let you finish. I'm gonna let you finish because I want to go out on a high note on this one. So my take on this movie is, I think I appreciate it a little bit more than Robert. I really enjoy the stylized look and feel of it, and especially the soundtrack. But I do have I was what do you call it, preconditioned or familiar with some of the music from listening to your album multiple times. And so I was picking it up, and it was really standing out to me. The story, yeah, very straightforward, and it borrows from some Greek and other mythical stuff, and I appreciated that. The acting was a little bit wooden. I would agree with that, and the action, the fighting scenes were Star Trek level. But I can see why it has this cult classic feel to it. Like, it's very much a period piece. Like, you can tell this was made in 1970, and you can appreciate it and look back on it and recognize that what they did with what they had was really quite amazing. And so I'm going to go with a 7.5 on this. So a full 25% more goodness from me. And we will now go to Mike C.
Okay, I don't know. This is objectively the greatest film ever made, I guess. The acting, it's not bad though. I think the plot is incredibly efficient. I think efficiency is often underrated in film. A lot of convoluted shit doesn't really actually pay off the way we think it does. We see these films and they're bloated, and we're hyped we're hyped by the music and everything leading up to it. I mean, I like this movie. I think the editing's tight, the lighting's tight. They did an insane amount of work with very little resources, and they worked very hard on something, and you can kind of see that. And yeah, it's got a sort of a science fiction quality to it, or a surreal quality, something comic book-esque, which is derived from some limitations, and it just sort of coalesced. So you can really see that multiple artists, the character designer, the costume designer, played a huge impact on this, and then the director would go back and forth with her and let her do whatever, and it's a collection of different minds coming together for something. And I think, despite it being pretty abstract and swift, I think we do get a lot of discussion about guest rights versus invasion, and the violence of it, or the authority of violence, and how that's ultimately what protects your property and your sort of rights as a concept. They do this again very swiftly and efficiently, because it's just a quick forced march. And in answer, they're safer on Coney Island because it's not just 9 guys in the gang. There's probably 100 guys in the gang that have eked out safety in this neighborhood, and they probably have some sort of relationship with their citizens to protect them and maintain a certain level of conduct, and that can't be ensured from an invading force. So it discusses a lot of those things very efficiently, and as a backdrop to what's going on. I don't know. I just think it's a really great film. And maybe it's just, kind of hipster. Maybe that's why I like it. Maybe it's got some sort of like maybe I'm part of the, they call it a cult following. Maybe that says something about the person watching it. But no, I think it's good. I don't know, 15 out of 10, I guess.
15 out of 10. All right. So we adjust for the exchange rate, and that brings it down to like a 9.5.
That's right.
All right.
I managed to like convert this into a metaphor for what is it? Identity politics and central banking. So I mean, there's something there.
Yeah, and you're referring to your
Or
album.
you can spin some.
Yeah,
gold
no, you
out
can
of
make anything
dog
else.
shit.
Yeah,
All right. Well, very good. And
the
Mike,
edge of the wedge.
I appreciate you being our guest yet again. You are one of our favorite guests, and I spell that with a U. Robert, next week, I think for episode 88, we're going to do American History X or Conspiracy. No, I'm just kidding. No dog whistling here.
Ha ha ha.
Ha ha ha. Funny jokes. Ha ha. We like. No, we're
Funny
gonna do
joke.
Back to the Future, of course. We got to go 88 miles an hour. And we're going to have a guest, returning guest from, he was here for It and The Shining. Doc Brown will be joining us to talk about Back to the Future next week when we come back. 30 years, and we'll be space aliens, and we'll go to the prom and introduce rock and roll, something like that.
And try and have sex with their moms.
Wow, that's
Sweet.
gross. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of The Last Nighters. Do check it out at lastnighter.com/87 for show notes and more. There's pre-show and post-show content available on Patreon. You can also find this on the Launchpad Media, where they're always launching new ideas in your direction. And do check out Mike C's work on the show notes page. His album is quite good, and I highly recommend it. We'll see you next week on Back to the Future. Thanks, everyone, and good night from last night. All right, we'll continue the transmission for a bit longer on the Actual Anarchy podcast before we get into that Kathleen Turner Overdrive, and we'll get into some more specifics on the album that Mike put together. And it looks like he's away for a moment, but Robert, I will direct this to you. In reading up on this film, apparently real gangs were involved in both providing security with protection money for the production, and also the actors had to not wear any of the costume offset because it would have triggered some of the gangs in that area to think they were actually in gang flying colors. And one of the gangs is called the Homicides, which I think is a brilliant name for a gang.
So they were worried that these guys looked like real gang members, or they actually
the actual
were
production for the.
mistaken?
Yeah, the actors weren't able to wear the colors offset.
Hang on, Daniel. I think the South America was trying to say something.
No, was it? Are you okay? So yeah, that they had to kind of negotiate with the gangs in the areas that they were filming.
Right, the actual gang.
So they went to the police and they said, "What's up with the gangs?" And the police gave them the intel that they had and said, "These are the safest areas for you to be doing what you want to do." But on Coney Island specifically, like they had a big dude pushing a best boy or a graph or whatever out of the way and walking towards the set, and like stage managers saying like, "Hey, we're filming, please don't walk into the shot," kind of thing. So they're like, because they're like, "What are these fuckers doing in colors in my area, right?"
Yeah, I heard that they went through and ruined thousands of dollars worth of equipment.
Oh, yeah.
So pretty interesting.
So
like the real life, like,
and there was gang fighting in the theater. That's why it got pulled from the theaters, right?
Exactly. So Robert, sorry, we keep stopping.
I'm just kind of blown away.
This is liquid gold, by the way.
That's how you do it. Okay.
Oh man.
So I'm just kind of blown away that these guys wearing those clothes were mistaken for real gang members. Is this how guys in the 70s and 80s dressed as?
Well, you look at like the Superfly shit and like Rastafarians.
Yeah, there were in one scene in the movies, one of the gangs is all pimps, like pimp style.
Well, I mean, there's that. I mean, that's exaggerated, but I don't think the Warriors were especially exaggerated. Like they're just wearing, leather vests.
Oh, you know what?
That's pretty realistic, gangy.
I read something about that. Apparently, their emblem on the back of the vest is similar enough to the Hell's Angels that it pissed off the Hell's Angels, and I guess they're very stringent about copyright.
Yeah. Well, because they have standards to maintain
Through a monopoly of violence. But anyway, just a little bit more.
Through a monopoly of violence. But at least, I mean, I like that better than Disney's version of, enlisting the American military. Did I say Disney? I meant oh, I'm not going to say that.
What are you afraid of, Mike?
Being called a specific kind of racist. That's like the ultimate taboo, apparently, these days.
It's a badge of pride, Sarah, these days.
Yeah, I don't know. I just
Depends on what retard's calling you.
well, I mean, like there are guys that just own delis, and then there's like Netanyahu. You know what I mean? Like those are not the same kind of whatever. If their ethnicity is the same, that's fine. But I think the elite of any group is always like that's the bad actor, generally speaking, and the peasantry of a subgroup tends to be condemned for the actions of the worst actors, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's similar to
Like the elite Jews, you know, do bad things, and then peasantry Jews get blamed for it. ISIS is not a representation of Islam necessarily, you know.
right. Yeah. You're basically saying
Aren't,
that
you know,
the elite,
like
of
white
any-
guys aren't all school shooters. I guess is the equivalence.
Right. Right. So it's more like the station that particular group within a group has. They are more alike with other of the elite of other groups than
That's like if Saudi Arabia, Israel, and America are all kind of on the same team. I don't know if it's about race. The color is green at that point. I think, you know, like the religion doesn't matter because it's like Christian, Jew, Muslim, and the races are all slightly different. So, and they're all kind of like that. That's the triangle, right? And then you got China, Russia, and Iran. So we're just talking about power centers and power structures fighting each other for, you know, either safety or instability or dominance, and which is, you know, kind of the same thing, because it's like I feel like as soon as somebody gets safe, they start you know, as soon as an empire gets safe, it starts pushing out anyway, right?
it seems like you've been reading the Grand Chessboard by Zbigniew Brzezinski, something like that.
Maybe.
Well, anyway, that's probably enough of the actual show here, the actual Anarchy podcast, which is episode 1.
Oh, we're still in actual Anarchy?
Yeah, episode 144.
Oh shit! Sorry, I usually save the the Grand Chessboard stuff outside of that. Sorry, boys.
Yeah, no, that's right. We're used to it.
Yeah, we'll get into that in Caffeine Overdrive just after this, which is available for Patreon supporters, actualanarchy.com/Patreon. Please do give us likes and subscribes, reviews on the iTunes and all that. That helps get the earballs and all of the other goods. Like to have you guys check out Mike C's work. We'll have the show notes on the page there, and you'll be able to get a link to that. Check it out. And we'll be back again next week with Back to the Future. Final word to Robert.
I don't have any final words.
We usually have some loving parting gifts for people, or, you know, hugs and kisses and all that.
Oh man, the hugs and the love and the kisses I'm going to send through this microphone into your ears and down to your groins. Man, you're going to feel it in the cockles of your heart. But you guys are awesome. Really do appreciate each and every one of you guys who listens. We'd probably be doing this anyway because we enjoy doing it, and hopefully that comes through. And, you know, sometimes it probably doesn't always sound that way with our interesting quality, let's put it that way. But no, every single one of you guys listening is it's just kind of weird and awesome. So thank you for that. And
right.
We'll hear you. We'll listen to you. We'll talk at you next time.
The Chipmunks. CHIPMUNK. We're the Chipmunks. Guaranteed to brighten your day. Do 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 do.
In the early days of the internet, radical libertarians were scattered, lonely, and faceless. Without direction, they resigned to scour the web, sifting through content providers in a wasteland plagued by YouTube demonetization, Facebook jail, and covert internet censorship. But then, in 2017, the Libertarian Union was formed. Finally, the average Joe libertarian could find a thriving community of independent podcasters and content providers, all in one convenient location. At Libertarian Union, we'll always have the latest news, interviews, discussions, and even movie reviews. With hundreds of episodes and more added all the time, you'll always find something fresh at libertarianunion.com.